Now I want the follow-up to this episode where the lizard people have built up a religion around Kirk, Spock, and Bim being their gods, and to prove their mortality, Kirk lets them shoot an arrow at his chest or whatever.
Been there, done that.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Captain Kirk
Of the Starship Enterprise.
and the ineluctable Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock, my first officer.
Dr. Spock of
I can't imagine.
Kirk. Of the Starship Enterprise.
Did I ever tell you about the time I saved Captain Kirk's life?
Kirk. Of the Starship Enterprise.
What a blessing to be able to live one's life over again. If the life you've led has left you unfulfilled.
Nuchnech, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Ray Sarah.
And I'm Ashmead Alley.
Hey, happy Star Trek Day.
Woohoo! Happy Star Trek Day.
A little peek behind the pod here. We are recording this and the next episode on Star Trek Day. It's not only Star Trek Day, because our show debuted on Star Trek Day, it's also our anniversary.
It's our second year anniversary. 2 years.
I don't believe it. Do you have any favorite memories from the 2 years of Humanist Trek?
Just the times that we crack each other up.
Mm-hmm.
The stupid ideas that we've come up with. What do you call it? The band name t-shirts.
I got to get those made.
You have to
Maybe-
go. Are you able
maybe
to
by-
go back and find them all?
I have them in my phone. I was writing them down in my notes, so I have them. I'm one of those people that has like 73 notes open at all times, and I couldn't tell you what's in any of them. But yeah, maybe by the next Star Trek Day, maybe by our next anniversary, we'll have the band t-shirt.
Do you have them where you can read them out?
Yeah.
For our anniversary, here are all the band names we've come up with in the last 2 years.
Okay, Kirk and the away team, Spock and the red shirts. There are a lot of X and the Y.
Yeah,
Names.
I mean that's a band. That's
Yeah. Khan and the GMOs. That was a fun one. Spock and the Telosians. Blasting the Temple. Vibrating Bush. Norm and the Alice bots. That's one of my favorites. I use that a lot on social media. Oh, here's a fan favorite. Wet Tribble.
Thank you, Sarah D.
The Providers.
Mm-hmm.
Nona and the Mugatos.
Domo arigato, Mr. Mugato.
I'd forgotten about so many of these.
I know.
Cloud William and the Yangs.
Oh, I love it, Cloud William.
Galt and the Thralls. Kirk, Spock, and the Keystone Cops. Vulcan Death Grip.
Like, Five Finger Death.
Yes. Flamin' Asteroids. And Kang and the Gang.
Bada to mo, soja to go. Yaja ke-o, yaja ke-o, yaja ke-o.
Nice.
One of my other favorite memories is just being at cons and meeting people and talking to people. And like the idea for this whole thing was to get on Zoom and do a nerdy show with my nerdy friend.
Yeah.
But it has connected us with so many awesome people.
Agree. I think Galacticon was my favorite, and then Fort Collins happened. So they're right up there as two of my favorites.
Yeah,
so
I
far.
agree. Top two for sure. I just did I filled out the survey for the Fort Collins one, and the staff and the volunteers and everybody were just freaking amazing. And I just couldn't say enough great things about them. We just need to get them a podcast room, and I'm working on it. Maybe next year around this time, you'll be able to come see us do a live show at Fort Collins Comic-Con. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Anyway, I guess we could talk a little bit about what Star Trek Day is doing this year. And I feel like this is an influence from the Roddenberry Foundation. They are running a campaign called Take the Chair, Make an Impact.
Oh, nice.
And so this is to support some organizations that are doing good work out there. I'm just going to read the Star Trek Day thing. In celebration of Star Trek Day, the franchise announces Take the Chair, Make an Impact, a global campaign encouraging fans to embrace the optimistic vision of a brighter future and to give back to the inclusive community of fans that Star Trek has fostered over the years. The Star Trek franchise is making a donation to code.org, dosomething.org, and Outright International, while also encouraging fans to take on the missions of giving back with this worldwide social activation. This year, Star Trek has partnered with 3 worldwide nonprofits that embody the values of the franchise, including Code.org, giving every K-12 student the opportunity to learn computer science. That's awesome. DoSomething.org, fueling young people to change the world, and Outright International, advocating for LGBTIQ inclusion. That's a string of letters that is not normal. It's usually LGBT, LGBTQ, LGBTQIA+. LGBTIQ is a non-standard variation of the of the Rainbow Mafia acronym. Anyway, advocating for queer inclusion and equality globally. The Take the Chair campaign invites fans to see themselves in the iconic USS Enterprise captain's chair and ask themselves, what would I do if I were setting the course to the future? Fans will be able to engage through a digital experience available to fans worldwide on StarTrek.com. Let's do our mission generator. Where would you like to chart your course? Exploration and scientific study, or provide assistance to those in need? I know which one I'm picking.
Exploration.
No, providing assistance to those in need. I feel like, and this is a great conversation. I feel like
not me. I'm good. I think I'm gonna do science.
And maybe this is just related to my current life situation, but I feel like it's one of those things I feel like we need to take care of people first. You know, and I've said many times, there is some poor kid in a slum somewhere who has within their brain the cure for cancer or, you know, some horrible disease that we've been fighting.
Yep. But because we didn't save him or,
Yeah, because we didn't provide for their basic needs and education and all of those things, we've squandered away a talent and not just like, you know, medical advancement, but all kinds of things that those kids, those people in impoverished conditions could be contributing if only they weren't just struggling to survive.
Right.
So that's why I chose my choice.
I think both are important. And, you know, who knows, if you're out there doing space exploration and science, maybe you could bring back something that could help people in a larger way, in a larger scale.
Yeah.
So I think both are important.
Okay. You and your crew discover an ancient artifact with immense power. What is your next directive? Option 1, study the artifact to unlock its potential and achieve a technological breakthrough. Or answer 2, secure the artifact to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Do you put it in the box?
The stasis box? And then put it somewhere on an asteroid on a faraway galaxy?
Yeah. Do you bury it in the 1987 elementary school? What the fuck are those called? Time capsule.
Because I've seen Star Trek, and I know what happens when we try to unlock its potential.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's unlock its potential.
That's what I was going to choose.
I know how this is going to work out anyway.
You encounter an unknown species and their intentions are unknown. As a leader, how do you respond? Attempt to establish peaceful relations and forge an alliance? Or prepare for a defensive maneuver to protect your ship and crew, ensuring their safety?
Option 1, of course.
Of course.
Always talk first. Talk first, shoot later.
All right, we have our mission. We are in the next generation of innovators. You have a passion for logic, problem solving, and technological advancement. You're part of the next generation of innovators.
Nice.
Some simple ways you can take immediate action in your community. donate old cables and chargers. Many schools, libraries, and community centers have need for spare cables.
How old are they talking? Because
not like Scotty's box of old cables.
Because I have a ton.
Share your tech skills. That's a thing you and I can do. Many are eager to learn how to use technology, but may need some extra help. Volunteer to teach basic computer skills, smartphone use, or how to navigate the internet. And build a community. Art has the power to heal. Share your art in public spaces, whether through art, music, and or fashion, to uplift and revitalize your community. That's what we do every week.
Yeah.
Share our, I guess you could call this art.
Quote unquote art.
Again, that's in the eye of the beholder, but that's not this week's episode. This week, we have to decide whether we're going to shoot or try to establish peaceful relations and forge an alliance with the lizard people of that planet in the Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 2, Bem.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
The Enterprise is out exploring strange new worlds or whatever, and apparently it's take your independent observer to work week or something, because this episode's namesake, Bem, is aboard, and Bem is a member of a recently contacted species who they agreed to just drive around for a little while so he could watch how they do things, I guess.
What do you call those people that drive around with the cops?
A ride-along. He's doing a ride-along, yeah.
He's doing a ride-along. He's doing a ride-along.
Sulu pulls the Enterprise up to planet Delta Theta 3. The more Greek words you have in it, the more sciencey it sounds.
Right.
Which earlier scouting missions reported may have some aboriginal life forms.
This guy's name is Ari Ben Bem, and I don't know if you watched RuPaul's Drag Race.
No.
But there's a UK drag queen called Bimini Bombulash, and I have been calling this guy the whole time I'm watching this episode. Bimini Bombulash.
When I was about 14, I tried it on with the vicar. I was too old, apparently. That was the last time I ever went to Dibley.
In the briefing room, Kirk explains the mission. We have to sneak down to the planet, set up some hidden cameras, and then dip before the locals catch us.
Because they've sensed several groupings of aborigines, is what they call them. They think they might be dangerous, so he tells them, okay, don't try to be a hero.
Unless Spock is in trouble, then we be heroes.
Of course.
Let's talk about Bem.
I was going to say, they show him at the controls. and I suppose you know about the name BEM, Bem. The bug-eyed monster. It's sort of like an acronym that they came up with.
I did not know this.
Through that time, it was like a scientific acronym.
Okay.
How do you like him? How do you like him?
I kind of hate him. He's okay. Not based on how he looks. He's this green fish dog faced thing with a red mohawk and sideburns.
Mm-hmm.
And he does this thing, and I know we've talked about this before. So to make Jimmy seem more alien as Bem, he never says, I did this, I did that. It's this one. This one wants to go on an away mission.
His pronouns are this one and that one. Or their pronouns are this one and that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to talk about this cat either. Like, we're going to probably interchange pronouns a lot throughout as we go.
Bimini Bombulash decides that he's going to go on this particular mission. And Kirk is a little bit puzzled because he's been on board for quite a while. They've been on 6 missions, and the whole time he was in his cabin.
Kirk tries talking him out of it. You know, it's a dangerous mission and whatnot. But you're kind of a diplomat, I guess. Sort of. But we wouldn't want anything to happen to you. But this one is too stubborn. He is going on the away mission. Now, this is important. Bem has set the transporter coordinates. And while Scotty does give him a quick check, he didn't look closely because as they beam onto the planet, Everybody beams onto solid ground except for Kirk and Spock, who splash down in a lake.
They materialize in midair,
Yeah.
and then they splash down.
Ugh.
So Bimini Bambulash is going to be nice and jump in after them, or so we think. And he says, I love the way he talks, actually. Assistance is offered. And he calls Captain Kirk Captain.
That annoyed the hell out of me. You enjoyed that? Oh, I hated it so much.
No, I just thought it was funny. It's funny. So he jumps in the water, and this was what weirded me the fuck out. They show a shot of him underwater. His torso separates from the rest of his body, and his torso walks around behind Kirk and Spock, and there's some hands that come out of his bottom.
These hands coming up out of its jaws.
Yeah.
Do you remember them sticky hands? The big long thing that you'd go and they shoot across
Like
the
slime,
room. Yeah, no, they were like a rubbery
Putty.
kind of material with a hand on the end.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You'd fling it and the hand would stick on your screen or whatever. That's what they look like.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on? These hands come out of his drawers, as you say, and they reach into Spock and Kirk's pocket. They take out the communicators and replace it with something that looks like a communicator, and it takes its phasers. And the whole time, Spock and Kirk are talking to Bimini Bambulash, or at least the top half of him, sticking out of the water. They have no idea what's going on underneath the water.
Now, I get this is the Saturday morning cartoon thing, but the way they showed the sticky hands going up into their shirts to grab these devices, they would have felt that. This guy's a bad pickpocket.
Yeah, but it's cartoon.
Yeah. Uhura's on the phone, and she and Eric's are picking up some weird shit on the sensors. She calls it a non-network sensory stasis, and even Kirk's like, huh?
It's a sensor field, or it seems like a sensor field, but without scanning the grid or any other point of reference. Kirk wants to know if it's moving, and Eric's refers to something as this Brownian movement only. Do you know what Brownian motion is?
I do not. I assume it's somehow related to like brown noise.
No.
Incorrect.
Hey, I looked this up. I am not pig ignorant.
You're doing research. Holy shit.
Well, anytime they use a term that I've never heard, I'm like, okay, is it real?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not real. Sometimes it's only Star Trek. But Brownian motion is a real thing, and it refers to the random movement displayed by small particles that are suspended in fluids.
Oh.
It was named for a Scottish botanist named Robert Brown in like 1827. And like, so a common example of it would be when you look at the window and the light's coming through and you see dust particles in the air, that is the movement of dust particles is an example of Brownian motion.
Well, damn, we learned something
there
today.
You go. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da.
Spock suggests that perhaps there is something else on this planet, something intelligent. And Kirk counters, it could just be the wind, Spock. I don't know. If Spock says he thinks there's an intelligence somewhere around here, I'm going with Spock every time.
Going with Spock. Yeah.
Anyway, they all continue on. They walk through a rainforest, and Spock is writing poetry about it. Lo, the life on this planet appears to be geologically younger than one would expect, given the age of this star. But as the silhouettes walk off camera, a shadowy figure steps into frame, watching them.
Bimini Bambulash says that it's picking up some readings of a large group of life forms directly ahead. And just as Kirk is about to say, well, we need to make sure we stay on the down low, Bim goes running off. And Kirk is like, hey, wait, where are you going? He goes running off into the bush, some really thick bush, by the way, that real thick bush. Bimini Bambulash is in the bush.
That's a big bush.
And Spock is like, man, he's not going to get far. But they go chase him anyway. And they tell Scotty to just stay the course and just try not to be seen. But then they show Bimini Bambulash in the thicket And then he goes and divides himself again. His head pops off, then his arm, and then his torso, and this shit's floating through the trees.
And Kirk and Spock can't follow, obviously. They can't divide themselves up into smaller pieces. So they go around the thicket, but soon realize they've lost Bem. But then they see him surrounded by a bunch of velociraptor-looking lizard people with spears. Are these Gorns? Maybe these are Gorns.
Baby Gorn. Maybe they're like early Gorn planet. You know how like they're planets that are humanoid? Maybe these are...
Proto-Gorns.
Yeah, something like that. Proto-Gorns. I don't know, but they're like lizards. And they've got spears, and they've surrounded Bimini Bombulash in a circle.
This was a funny throw to commercial. Spock says, hunters and gatherers. And Kirk's like, yeah, and the food they've gathered is Bim. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Back on the bridge, Uhura's in charge. I love it. I fucking love it. And Eric's is reporting that he's reading increased activity on the surface of the planet, and that sensory thing that they first saw is expanding. So they try to call down, and Scott answers, and she's like, well, where's Kirk Captain? And he's been separated from them. But she says, well, I tried his line, but it's not even busy. It's not picking up at all. It's like it's been disconnected.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number and try your call again.
Perfect. So she just wants to warn them that they're picking up more activity from the anomaly.
So Uhura orders Eric's to start a sensor scan for Kirk and Spock. Did we not just talk about last week keeping a lock on everybody during an away mission?
Well, only
when the script calls for it.
Yeah, only when Kirk orders it.
I'm just saying they need to review their SOP.
Yeah. Don't worry. We're almost into it.
We're almost there, yeah. And then Uhura orders the landing party to beam back up immediately. And Scotty pushes back. He wants to search for Kirk and Spock from the ground. But Uhura's like, bitch, your orders were to not be a fucking hero today. I said stand by to beam up. I love Uhura in charge.
Me too.
So good.
So sure enough, they beam up, and then back on the surface, Kirk and Spock are still looking for this motherfucker. And then he tries his communicator and realizes, hey, something's different about this.
When I worked in a Verizon agent store, I used to sell Verizon Wireless back in the day when it was like Ameritech had just been bought by Verizon, like in that era.
Back before all the big ones started gobbling them up because there were so many before.
Yep. So we were a little one that got gobbled up by Verizon, and we were selling StarTACs at the time. And
that was the name of
it was the Motorola StarTAC. That's why I call the fucking it is the phone that was inspired by the communicator, right? Star Trek kind of created
the
flip phone. And so the StarTAC was like, that was the beast. It was the king when it came out. And back then, in order to like display the phone models that we had available, they sent us dummy phones, and they were exactly like the phone, except there wasn't a circuit board or anything in it. So it was lighter, but it was the flip phone. You could flip it open and, so that's what I thought they snuck a dummy phone into there. Kirk's like, hang on, this isn't my StarTAC.
And Spock realizes their phasers don't work either. And they're like, I've had this on my belt the whole time. How could this happen? And of course, Kirk says, well, something funny's going on.
But also they have to save Bem. So they follow as the lizard people lead Bem away to their settlement. And observing from a nearby hilltop, Spock says, these aborigines appear to be in a late primitive state, intelligent, basic language, social structure. And Kirk notes that Bem seems to be a model prisoner. He's just standing in this cage that they've made out of like some branches or bamboo or something.
And they decide to wait until nightfall to attempt their escape. A few minutes later, Suddenly it's night. You know what that is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's easy. All you need is a box.
And imagination.
Are you trying to say I have no imagination? I have more imagination in one tentacle than you two have in your whole bodies.
That's good. Now all you need is a box.
Suddenly it's night, and they sneak down, and Bim, Kirk, Captain? And he's like, shut up, we're rescuing you.
I couldn't believe they said shut up on this show. That was a 4-letter word when I was growing up. You didn't say shut up.
Mm-mm. You might as well have said bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that stupid? Some of the things, like, I think my grandparents didn't like the word fart. Oh, you passed wind or whatever. Like, no, it's a fart.
You tooted.
Yeah, you tooted, right. That's so stupid. They're just words, people. These cages look to me like Bim could easily lift them up. And as an audience, of course, we know that he could split himself up and sneak out if he wanted to. But, like, they looked super weak as cages go.
You just knock it over.
Yeah. So there's got to be a reason then that he's playing along.
Right. He's not resisting at all. And he's acting like he doesn't want to be rescued. Kirk opens the door and they rescue him anyway. But it's too late because a bunch of the lizard people come and with tiki torches. And there it kind of looks like they're alligators. That's where I'm like, they kind of look like alligators or crocodiles. And then they go, wow, wow, wow. No, I cracked up at the sound effects. But they've caught them again.
You said the tiki torches, and all I could think is the lizard people chanting, humans will not replace us. Now they're all captured and put into cages, and Kirk says, there's a way out of any cage, and I'll find it.
They also kind of have a little funny moment here. Kirk's like, why do we always end up like this? And of course, Spock, who has no sense of humor at all, says, I assume that is a rhetorical question, not requiring an answer. And Spock says it's fate. Your human term, anyway, it's fate. And Kirk is like, okay, we'll try pinching them with a nerve pinch. But I didn't understand his answer. So Kirk says, why don't you try your Vulcan nerve pinch? And Spock says, Captain, I am only a Vulcan. There are limits.
Yeah. Does that call back to previous times when he's said, like, yes, we're telepathic or whatever with our own kind and somewhat with humans, but with anybody else, like, who knows? I don't know.
It works on humans, and he's done it a bunch of times with other species. So
right.
Don't give me that, Spock.
Kirk apologizes for not being able to rescue Bim, and Bim's like, Starfleet said you were their best captain. I haven't seen anything like that so far. Burn!
Well, Kirk is pissed. He's like, look, you got us into this fucking situation and by running off and disobeying orders.
He's like, you sneaky little fucker. If you had our heaters and StarTechs the whole time, why didn't you use them to escape? And this is the whole point, right? Bim wanted to see them diplomacy their way out of the problem, not shoot their way out or just call for a beam out.
But you can't do that if the species isn't on the same level. He is terribly misguided, but he calls the use of their weapons or whatever casual violence. And he's like, I'm not going to stoop to your level and demean myself to accomplish a goal. So Kirk demands the phaser and the phone back, and he says, this one must disassemble. And they're like, what? And then that's where they actually see it happening. He's breaking apart and going through the gaps of the bars.
He returns their devices, and Spock is all, fascinating. Commander Bim is a colony creature. What?
Who knew that was a thing? But cool.
Sure.
Do we have anything like that in real life?
Man, I didn't do research for this podcast. Come on now.
Wait, let me do it. Hang on. I didn't even think to do that, but there are some colony creatures. They're like small celled animals of the phylum Bryozoa, which, I don't think it's it's not a fox or anything like a mammal, but we do have some colony creatures. There's something called hydrozoans, ascidians, corals. There you go. Corals is a colony creature. So those are what we have as colony creatures. But they don't I guess they could separate if they wanted to.
I feel like anytime scientists name a new thing, they just take a bag full of letters from the Scrabble board and shake them out onto the table, and whatever lands is what they call it.
Yeah.
I know that's not how it works. Don't send me letters.
Do your research.
So Kirk asks again, all right, you didn't want to use heaters and StarTACs. Bro, you can split yourself into smaller pieces? Again, why didn't you do that to escape? And Bem admits now to all of this being an opportunity to observe the Starfleets. And Kirk's like, well, you're under arrest. And he uses his heater to escape, leaving Spock to keep watch. Back on the Enterprise, Scotty checks in with Eric's, who has been scanning for life forms.
Life forms. You tiny little life form.
And Eric's is like, get off my back, Scotty. It's a big planet. It's going to take a while to scan, okay?
Meanwhile, Kirk and Spock and Bimini Bambulash are hiding, waiting for an opportunity to get away. And he can't get through on his real StarTAC now. And so they're going to have to think of something else to get out. And they have to realize there's no way they're not going to not be seen. So they're going to have to put their phasers on stun just in case. And then sure enough, they're spotted. And Kirk fires. But then suddenly there's this force field around them. And this entity voice booms out to tell them to do not use their weapons.
The entity who sounds a lot like Uhura.
Suspiciously like Uhura.
Listen, I'm not a religious person, but I might join a goddess Nichelle Nichols religion.
Hell yeah. But this is ancient aliens right here. Primitive people that hear a voice or see something they don't understand. It's a god. But this time it sort of is a god.
And it's lizard people. All the conspiracy theories are congealing into one. This entity reminded me of entities we've seen on the original series. I couldn't name any of them if I tried, but what was the one on Zephram Cochrane's planet?
Oh, that's exactly the one I was thinking of. The one with the sparkly yellow.
The Companion or whatever it was called. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Companion.
So this entity is like, listen, these are my children. I will not let you shoot at them. And Kirk tries to ask the entity who she is, but she's like, no, who are you? She's like, I have the power in this relationship right now. And you're going to tell me about you. So Kirk does. He introduces everybody and explains that their mission here is to classify the planet, test it, just normal Starfleet shit. And she's like,
oh, no, you didn't. He does say his name is James Tiberius Kirk, which I think is the first time that he's used the T.
I didn't even notice it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when she's like, oh, no, you didn't. What right do you have to classify anything? Because this planet is not for your use. These children are not for your tests, and your weapons will be nullified, bitch.
Yeah. Who do you colonizer bastards think you are anyway, just to come on up into here in our land and classify and test and whatever else you're going to do?
Right.
But she makes their weapons disappear. So she got some powers.
And they're back to being surrounded by lizards.
Kirk says sometimes he thinks he should have been a librarian. And Spock says, well, that job would be just as challenging, but a lot less dangerous. Shout out to the librarians.
They're taken back into custody. Back on the bridge, Scotty is bugging Eric's to see if he's located the captain yet. And he says he's found some anomalies or whatever that could be Captain Kirk and another set that could be Mr. Spock, but he can't really tell.
And Scotty orders a security team armed with phaser rifles to beam down.
Again, against orders. Now that he's back on the ship, he's now in charge because he outranks Uhura.
Mm-hmm.
And that is completely against orders and the Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive, how often have you broken it?
See, the Prime Directive has many different functions.
The Prime Directive
is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
It's a very interesting proposition. Let me think it over.
Stay hidden. Jesus Christ.
Back on the planet, they're in cages again. And Bem decides these people are not as intelligent as they were told. And Kirk's like, listen here, you little shit. I'm only here to save you. But don't think it's because I like you and your annoying grammatical affectations. I'm trying to salvage the relationship between the Federation and Pandro. This ain't about you, buddy. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would let these lizard people just eat you. Because you're pissing me off.
But Bimini Bombulash says that the planet Pedro, I want to call it Pedro, Planet Pedro, doesn't really care about him as an individual. And also, they're not going to deal with inferior species like Kirk and the gang.
He's like, you literally failed everything this mission, Kirk, Captain. You failed to rescue me, and you failed to handle the locals. So Bim splits himself up, goes over to Kirk's cage, wishes him luck, and then he dips.
He's like, fuck this, I'm out.
Top of Act 3, so the solution's starting to come together. Spock suggests maybe we try to reason with the alien intelligence. So Kirk whips out his StarTAC and calls to the alien entity, but there's no answer. So Spock suggests maybe an offering. But Kirk dismisses this idea. They have to be honest, not try to bribe an alien.
Spock comes up with the idea to rig two communication things together and give off a high energy burst, so maybe the entity will answer. And they do that, and the entity finally says, I am here.
This was weak sauce to me. This alien entity so far seems to be omnipresent and maybe even omniscient. Like, It's totally seeing all of this, right?
He could have just said, hey, up there. You know, it didn't need a communicator, a Star Trek communicator. In fact, it appeared just because they were about to hurt the children, the lizard children. But anyway, it appears. And Kirk apologizes and eats some humble pie. We didn't know the situation. We're sorry. We'll leave, and we'll tell everybody else to just keep going, pass by.
Yeah, now we're setting buoys. Finally. Yes. Finally, we're dropping buoys off outside the planet. And she's like, good, get the fuck out of here and never come back. Only one problem, though. Bem ran off, so we can't find him. And the entity's like, well, that's too bad. I don't detect any other intelligence. Y'all got to go. And Kirk's like, I know he's not very intelligent, but we still got to help him. So she disables the field blocking comms, and Kirk radios up to have them bring down a security squad, not with phaser rifles, but with heavy-duty tricorders, which I didn't know was a thing. There's a standard tricorder and a heavy-duty tricorder. That's where.
Why not put it in one? Like,
why wouldn't you bring the heavy-duty one all the time?
Because you're always going to be scanning for aliens. It makes absolutely no sense. But these heavy-duty tricorders can sense the Pandronian physiology, which is what?
And also, why is the marketing synergy team not selling a standard tricorder play toy and an advanced
heavy duty?
Yeah.
They had so many opportunities for toys. I'm surprised there weren't as many out there as there were some of this other shit that came out in the 70s and 80s.
I wonder if maybe it was just a little too early, because have you ever watched those documentaries about the toys that made America or whatever? Becca's been into those
not recently.
But when I was a kid, toys were huge and were connected with media, right? So we had we were just making jokes about Care Bears. We had Care Bear plushies, and there was a Care Bear TV show, cartoon, right? Yeah, we had Star Wars toys based on a movie. We had G.I. Joe toys and He-Man toys and all of the stuff. In many cases, the cartoon ones were created specifically to sell toys to kids. Like that's why they existed. And so I feel like by the 80s when I was a kid, they had really figured this shit out where initially, we're still in original Star Trek time. They did have toys and you can still find some of those. They're very antique-like because it just wasn't a big thing yet.
Yep.
So I take it all back. I'm very sorry, Star Trek marketing synergy team in the 1970s. You did great.
It's not your fault. You were too far ahead of the time.
God. So Scotty in the security squad. Band name? Haven't had one of those in a while.
Sounds like a band name.
They beam in and Kirk starts throwing orders around. He's like, find Bim. He split himself into 3 pieces. And Scotty's like, the fuck you say?
Just like drop that on someone.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Also, take care not to harm the locals. Phasers on the weakest sun setting and don't shoot unless it's absolutely necessary. Can we take a moment here to discuss the posture of the security people as they go to spread out? Did you catch this?
No.
They're like walking with their shoulders way too far forward, like comically forward. Nobody
like
walks
hunched,
like that.
Like hunched over.
Yeah, they're like leaned over, walking like that.
Oh, I didn't.
It was weird.
I guess they're meant to be like sneaking, trying to stay out of sight.
I guess.
I don't know.
It was funny.
But it didn't do any good because the lizard people already quickly find them and they attack and they got Bim again. That fucker. And he's all in one piece. But then they do phaser them. The Starfleet whips out their phasers and shoot the lizard people. But the lizard people get scared and they like, oh no. And then they run.
Bim says, embarrassment results. This one is shamed. This one has failed in its judgment.
You don't say.
Yeah. Kirk's like, I feel like I keep saying this, but listen here, you little shit. This is all your fault. You endangered us. You forced us to interfere with the natives. You made us break the Prime Directive. And Bim's like, well, your PD doesn't apply to me. And Kirk's like, on my ship, it does.
But the entity is like, I thought I told y'all to get the fuck out of here. Y'all are still here. And you're still interfering. And now I'm getting mad. And Kirk says, we couldn't leave this piece of shit behind. We couldn't leave our own behind. And it's our responsibility to take care of our own, just like you. And the entity is pretty easily swayed. She's like, oh, yeah, you're so smart. Did you find him? Okay, yeah, bye. Get out.
Yeah, all's well that ends well on Star Trek, the Saturday morning special, right? Bim is not well at all, though. He thinks he really fucked up here, assumed a right to judge people where he had no right to judge. So he's going to not exactly unalive himself, but forever divide into his separate parts. No more cooperation, no more unity.
Maybe that's unalive in his in this one's terms. But I love that the entity steps in and says, no, do not destroy yourself. And Bimini Bombulash is like, but I made a mistake, a really bad one. And she's like, but if you disassemble, you can't learn from your mistake. Mistakes demand recognition so that they won't be repeated. So, duh. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. She says, this is why we teach history in schools, so we can learn from our mistakes and not repeat them. Although that hasn't been very successful, I guess, probably because your history books are published in Texas.
Ooh.
Throwing down, Texas. Let's go. Bim asks if he'll be punished. And the entity is like, those bitches on Humanist Trek have talked a lot about this. And it's really got me thinking, what even is punishment anyway? Is it revenge? Intelligent beings have no need for that. And punishment should only be used where learning cannot occur without it. She says that's precisely why she's trying to protect her children from more advanced people like the Federation, and why the Federation might take its prime guidelines a little more seriously. She doesn't want their weird-ass ideas of punishment and torture and revenge to be taught to her children.
But yet they did put them in a cage. Now, granted, they're probably going to eat them. So that's just food. That's just food.
That's
It's
different.
not being, it's just not, they're not being evil.
They beam back to the Enterprise for chair chat. Kirk orders this planet classified as strictly quarantined, which Bem says his people will also honor. Spock thinks this planet is fascinating. A highly advanced alien entity using the planet like a lab to raise up a species. Kind of godlike, don't you think?
Ancient alien.
Kirk says the difference is meaningless. In comparison, we're all still children. And for some reason, Bem gets another line. In this one's case, Kirk Captain, this one is still an eggling. Ugh, why do they do stupid shit like this? Are we filling time? Do we think it's
They just wanted a
be...
few more lines. They wanted another
guess.
word. I don't know.
And who am I to critique? I'm not a scriptwriter, right? Just as they're about to warp away, Goddess Nichelle blows in a quick call to send them off in peace and says they have learned much and should be proud. Off to the next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
You know, I thought when the entity said something like intelligent beings need no revenge, does that mean we are not intelligent? Right? Because she equates revenge to punishment. And does that mean we're not intelligent? Right now?
I think no. It's relative, right? So in comparison to, as we've talked before, mealworms or ants or something, like, sure, we're probably more intelligent than other species, but in this case, the more intelligent species is an alien entity, and to them, the Starfleets seem unintelligent in the same way we might look at a lesser species and think it's unintelligent.
Right. Who knows? There may be something out there more intelligent than us that we just don't know about yet.
So this episode of Star Trek The After School Special teaches us that when we make a mistake, we need to own it so we can learn from it, right? I think it's interesting that TNG, which we're almost up to, would have probably started this episode with Data presenting a PowerPoint about the Pandronians or whatever they're called, and like have these 3D displays of how the people separate into different pieces. That the episode would have started with, let me exposition the shit out of this new alien of the week. In TAS, they were like, climb aboard, explorers.
Yep. We'll let anybody come and do a ride along. Yeah. We don't know anything about you, but come on our bridge. Yeah.
Also, Bem and his people need a science lesson. He's conducting this experiment, but because he keeps getting involved in shit, the variables are never constant.
Exactly.
This is a terrible way to conduct a test.
It's set up to fail. It's going to fail every time. I think it's comical that this less intelligent species is trying to observe a more intelligent species. And he'd been on the ship for 6 missions and didn't learn shit about the humans at all. So
he was just sitting in his quarters naked on a beanbag eating Cheetos.
Ew.
Oh, that's Ron White.
Ew.
Ron White does a bit about sitting naked on a beanbag eating Cheetos.
Yesterday I was sitting in a beanbag chair naked eating Cheetos. And I was flipping through the television and I saw Robert Tilton. He's a televangelist from Dallas, and he was staring at me. He said this. He said, "Are you lonely?" Yeah. He said, "If you wasted half your life in bars pursuing sins of the flesh," this guy's good. He said, "Are you sitting in a beanbag chair naked eating Cheetos?" "Yes, sir." He He said, do you feel the urge to get up and send me $1,000? Close. I thought he was talking about me there for a second.
Some good weed right there. Now I want the follow-up to this episode where the lizard people have built up a religion around Kirk, Spock, and Bim being their gods, and to prove their mortality, Kirk lets them shoot an arrow at his chest or whatever.
Been there, done that.
Well,
Ancient aliens.
Can't wait for TNG. We're so close. Oh, and I will say I spent the day yesterday pulling clips to put together new intros and drops and stuff for the next gen, and going into the episodes just to scrub around and snip out little, lines here and there has got me in the like, oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It's gonna be interesting because the humanist themes they're going to be more complex, meaning it's not black and white. There's a bunch of different variables, and it really, really makes you think about what is the right thing to do. And again, no answers here, but it just really does a better job of making you think.
I think it's going to be a kind of a whiplash going from the Saturday morning special, which is like, and now kids, here's what we learned this week.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe! To these complex problems of ethics and morality, and it's going to be a jump.
Yeah. And people are going to die, so I'm going to be back to rhyming, I'm pretty sure.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
All right, so we want to thank all of our patrons. We especially want to thank our founding admirals, Russell, Allie, Peter, Sarah, and Sherry.
Well, hello there, interstellar wanderers. Guinan here, your favorite purveyor of wisdom and cosmic cocktails. Now, I've got something to tell you about a little podcast called Humanist Trek. I know. I usually deal with real-life space-time drama at 10 Forward, but this one's worth a listen. You see, they're on a mission. Laughter, exploration, and all that jazz. First off, leave a review, share the love like it's a secret ingredient in a warp core breach. Spread it around, and let the galaxy know what's what. For those feeling a bit more philanthropic and just wanting to splurge some Federation credits, become a patron. It's like having a backstage pass to the holodeck, but better. Early access to episodes, exclusive merch that's cooler than a Ferengi's profit margin, and bonus content like personal logs. Imagine Spock, but funnier. Oh, and did I mention reactions to those very short treks? It's like watching Klingons try to line dance. Pure entertainment. So it's time to join the fleet. Do yourself a favor. Head over to patreon.com/humanisttrek. It's the cosmic investment in laughter and the kind of support that makes the universe a brighter place. Trust me, it means a lot to them. And hey, it might just brighten up your journey through the stars too. Cheers.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
Becca's back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge question for Bem. Remind us the question.
Who was writer David Gerald's pick for the voice of the alien entity in this episode?
Now, we know Nichelle Nichols was the voice of the alien entity. I thought we were talking about Bem.
Me too. I thought we were talking about Bem, so I misunderstood.
So my guess was David Gerald. Allie's guess was Bill Shatner. What's the right answer?
David Gerald suggested that Nichelle Nichols should do the voice of the entity.
Incorrect.
Because of her popularity with Trek fans.
Aw,
yeah,
I love that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They loved her.
Well, no points. Let's try again. Next week, we'll be reviewing Star Trek The Animated Series, Season 2, Episode 3, The Practical Joker. What is our question for this episode?
I think this is going to be a giveaway, but oh well.
We could use one of those.
Yeah, we'll take it.
This was the first appearance of a version of the holodeck. But what was it called in this episode?
Oh, we know. This
The
is a
Rec
gimme.
Room.
The Rec Room, yeah.
Yeah. Come on, give us a point. We know it's right. But we'll find out next week.
Yes, and if you'd like to play along, you know how to do that. Head out to your social media, share the episode with your guests in the hashtag Starfleet Challenge. When I remember to look for those, we pick one out to be our favorite and our winner. And and next week, we'll review Star Trek The Animated Series, Season 2, Episode 3, The Practical Joker.
Diftor, hech, smoothma.
Kapla.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Trek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.